This video is sponsored by Async Art. Async Art is rare, programmable art running on a blockchain that's split into dynamic layers. These change over time, affecting the overall image. This means the art evolves reacting to external data, whether that's the weather, the date, or even crypto prices. Two artworks worth highlighting are Micah Johnson's Sovereignty. This reacts to the date, and on the birthday of the two brothers in the artwork, it reveals a QR code allowing you to donate Bitcoin to them. The second piece is a collaboration between Trevor Jones and A Lot of Money called ETHBoy. You can check out all this groundbreaking programmable art at async.art. That is ASYNC.art. Thanks for the sponsorship. And welcome to Blockchain Gaming Daily with me, John Jordan. This is the YouTube channel all about blockchain games, so please subscribe if you're interested in that. So the news today is that the SEC in the US has granted IMVU permission to sell crypto tokens, or that's what the news that CoinDesk says. We can kind of pull it apart a little bit. So IMVU is a fairly well-established kind of avatar, metaverse sort of social networking company. Been around for a while, a number of years, kind of VC funded, raised getting on for $30 million in VC funding. Nothing to do with the blockchain until this point. But I guess because they are based in the US and because they are a VC company and probably at some point they want to IPO or get sold to a big company, they're kind of taking it by the book and actually getting the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, to check what they're doing is correct, because the SEC over the last few years has been fairly aggressive at looking at kind of companies in the blockchain space who they feel have broken the existing laws by releasing tokens that they think are a security. And if you are selling securities, stocks, that sort of thing, you need to have certain licenses and permissions, and you can only sell to certain individuals, and you need to know who they are, all that sort of thing. And that sort of stuff doesn't work particularly well in the blockchain space, as we all know, which tends to be decentralized and not very keen on kind of ID and laws. So it's kind of a good move, I suppose, that they have gone down this route. It's worth kind of picking through what this actually means. So the SEC has said there's a no action letter, which basically means if IMVU does what it says it's going to do about its tokens called VCOIN, that is kind of it's not going to take any action against them. But what's interesting is there are strict restrictions on what they can do with these tokens, and I guess that'll be kind of the interesting point for discussion. So as we can see, there are some other letters that have been released before. Actually, this one, Pocketful of Quarters, is an interesting one. That's a kind of a blockchain game currency, and they got one of these no action letters, but they were this was basically using a crypto token as a pure kind of like a token in an arcade. So it's not money and couldn't be exchanged for money. So Pocketful of Quarters hasn't really gone anywhere since it was announced over a year ago now. So what's interesting for IMVU is it basically wants to use this currency, the VCOIN, as a currency in its application. Allowing people to use it as a payment method, but equally, as we can see, the SEC, while allowing them to buy, sell, and trade these things, there are quite a lot of kind of artificial restrictions. So we can see here, so the VCOIN is running on Ethereum. It's an ERC20 token, and basically can be used as a royalty system for creators, as a payment system for that. So what can't IMVU do with this? So they can only sell tokens at a fixed price. So when they're selling tokens, at least it's going to be whatever the price is. I don't know, $1 or 1/10 of a cent or something, or whatever they choose to be. Buyers must agree to purchase the tokens to use and not speculate on price. Quite how they're going to enforce that, I've no idea. Proceeds cannot be used to build the VCOIN network. Again, quite unsure what that means. Users must comply with a number of know your customer and anti-money laundering restrictions. So that is stuff like when you sign up to an exchange like Binance, they want to see you need to send them a copy of your passport and a copy of and a photo, and they need to know probably your bank account details if you're cashing out. So those sort of money laundering restrictions. And it's even more interesting than that. So the lawyer for IMVU is saying users cannot convert VCOIN into fiat currencies on its platform. So what it's looking like is you will buy VCOIN using your credit card or some other payment method using fiat currency on the IMVU platform, but then they will not let you cash it out. But it looks like there is an option here. You can pay a fee to convert it out on a different platform. Now, what's interesting about this is obviously it's an ERC20 token. So that's kind of a free token on the Ethereum blockchain. So you would think people would come up with a way of getting it off the IMVU platform and sticking it on Uniswap, and then thus there will be a way to speculate on that, because obviously that would be that's just an open market platform. Some blockchain companies do have kind of systems that kind of try to stop people taking cryptocurrencies out, so out of a wallet. So that generally means that the wallet system is inbuilt into the client. In this case, it would be the IMVU client, and the private keys are held by that company. So the user doesn't have access to the private keys, so they can't kind of extract it. In a way, kind of PayPal has done this. So at the moment you can buy Bitcoin in PayPal, but you can't send your Bitcoin to another Bitcoin address. Similar thing with Revolut, the banking app. You can own Bitcoin, but you can't access and send it out. And even there's a blockchain game called Upland running on EOS, and basically they have a token, cryptocurrency, UPX it's called, and certainly when they launched, you couldn't do anything with that. You just kind of held it in the game. Now they are kind of opening that up and allowing people to kind of cash that out through different mechanics. So what will be interesting with this is, although it's very restrictive to begin with, I imagine over time, and depending on what happens to legislation, IMVU will kind of allow people to get stuff out, and it kind of suggests you can get stuff out, but it's just a restricted kind of platform. Also interesting here, saying IMVU intends to dissuade potential speculative actions by preventing users from obtaining more VCOIN than they could realistically use. So it looks like there may be some sort of fixed limits on how much VCOIN can be bought per account, which obviously just means people will open multiple accounts. Users will be restricted in transferring too many tokens off the platform and must abide by a holding period of 45 days before they can conduct any off-platform transfers. So more and more restrictions. I guess what's interesting is if people are using this to kind of pay within the network. So if someone creates something and then people can pay them for that in this VCOIN, then as a creator you might actually be accumulating quite a lot of this token if you make something that's really cool. But then you'll kind of you have to kind of lock it up for a certain period of time to cash it out. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I kind of think. This kind of stuff just doesn't work. This is kind of like we've seen this in the non-blockchain world when countries or governments have kind of limits on how much currency can be taken out. So, I mean, kind of the Chinese government, a kind of key example, that there's only so much of their money you can send out using the banking system. It's easy to do that in a non-blockchain situation. It's harder to do that when you're on the blockchain, and there is an assumption with people that you can do what you want with it, and two, it's just technically much harder to do. Obviously you can do it, but then you're asking people to kind of attempt to hack your system. And in a sense, all this does is actually drive speculation and drive the difference between the kind of the official rate and the kind of black market rate. And we've kind of seen this, throughout history, where the government says, well, this is how many dollars you can get for your whatever money it is, and then on the black market it'll be double that or triple that, and obviously no one uses the government option. So I'm thinking that that IMVU have gone through all this process not to come up with a restrictive, not very good system. I think they're doing this as a first take, see how it works, and then gradually over time kind of allow people to have access to it if they want to. And the other thing with a lot of these products is this has been going for a number of years. I think 10 years, over 10 years now, and probably many of its users just want to use it. They don't care about cryptocurrencies, they don't care about owning their private keys. There is issues around people having access to private keys and then losing them, and then they can't get their money back, and all this sort of stuff is becomes more problematic as we go more mass market. So it may be sensible for them to have kind of control over people's private keys, or there's ways you can do it where you don't necessarily have control over the crypto, but you can kind of allow them to reset their accounts and gain access to their private keys if they if at some point you decide to do that. So it's probably a good first step. I think we'll see a similar thing with PayPal. At the moment in PayPal you can buy ETH and Bitcoin, but you can't extract it out of their system. I think probably over time that will change, but that may be a number of years. So let's just, before we go, have a quick look at what IMVU looks like. So this is just the kind of the video on the home page. So I've not used this. I know of it and I've kind of have some knowledge of the kind of the system, but as you can see, kind of the what they're kind of showing off here. It's like a social network with avatars, and one of the key things they have is obviously user generated content, so people are generating kind of clothes and that sort of thing. And as we can see here, also it's a global kind of community. So obviously English, but Spanish, Portuguese. These things tend to be pretty big in Latin America and some other developing kind of countries. And adding crypto for that is kind of helpful because people don't always have access, certainly, to credit cards. People don't always have access to kind of standard Western banking system. So allowing people potentially to move a cryptocurrency around is quite a good way of doing it. And I think it is interesting that we start to see now more and more of these, what we would call traditional kind of software, traditional games companies with quite large communities, and communities where there is a lot of value being created. And when they're thinking about how can we expand that value, how can we allow people to extract value, how can we obviously then encourage creators to spend more time doing things in there, how can we get people to create businesses in these kind of experiences, because that will just drive our growth, and then moving to blockchain. And I think we'll just see more and more of that. By the by, there's a similar sort of avatar system called Genies, which has just raised $3 million from a games company, Bandai Namco, and they've announced they're going to be running their system on the Flow blockchain, the new blockchain from Dapper Labs. They're slightly different in the sense that the Genies platform is more about celebrities. So you have a lot of celebrities in there. You have a lot of kind of luxury good brands like Gucci making things in there. These are not things that I would necessarily think would be the first adopters of blockchain cryptocurrencies, but we are seeing this stuff happening quite regularly now and at quite a pace. And I think that's because people now, these companies, understand blockchain isn't shady. It's not all Bitcoin. There's a lot of these interesting new blockchains coming that are much faster and get around a lot of the problems of onboarding and kind of key control and maintenance and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. This is Blockchain Gaming World, where we are deep in the world of what is happening, this emerging collision of a kind of transactional payment system, a decentralized transactional payment system using various blockchains, and these kind of products that we've got used to using over the last 10-20 years. And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting dynamics created between these two quite different sectors. But anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope to see you again soon.